All right. Can you hear me, Michelle?
Yes, I can.
All right. We are in business. 1 second. And notifications are going out. Am I echoey
Excellent.
or feeding back? Can you hear any? Does that
No,
sound all right to you?
no, it's all good.
Perfect. All right. So we are live. This is April the 12th, 2023. This is the Web 3x3 podcast. I am joined, as always, by my lovely co host, Michelle Peterson Clark, who's a lot closer these days in New York, apparently, from London, which we'll be going through
I
that in a moment.
am.
How's the trip going so far, Michelle?
Good. Now I've been trying to think up all of their names. So I'm in New York. I'm in the Big Apple. I'm in the concrete jungle where dreams are made of. Now,
Oh,
are there any other songs that I need to include? Or New York
if you can
by
make it there.
Sinatra?
Listen, I got a
Yeah,
lot of
I can
words.
make it anywhere.
I got a lot of names for New York City, having worked there 30 years. You probably don't want to hear any of them. This is
They're probably all rude.
they all start with the letter F, I'll tell you that. All right, so this is
Fintech?
season 2, episode 12, Web 3x3 podcast. This is Web3 Goes International. On this episode, we're going to find out why Web3 is heating up in the Asia Pacific region. We'll hear a list of some more global brands that are entering the Web3 space. And most importantly, we're going to get an insider's view into what's going on at NFT.NYC from a speaker directly. Michelle, who would that be? Do you know?
Uh, Me, maybe.
We're not joined by our other co-host, Mike Neubauer, your ops guy, could not be here today because ironically, they are doing a minting for business purposes. So good luck with that, Mike, if you're listening. Um,
Yes.
so what I'll do is I'll say number one, this show is not meant to be financial advice. It is generally going to be a conversation to bring education around the Web3 blockchain space, specific to marketing and business. We're here to make Web3 accessible to the regular business folks in normal language so folks will understand how this is changing marketing and how you too can use it inside of your business. What we're going to, and actually, we're sponsored this week by the Web3 Content Lab, a marketplace where content creators can create utility NFTs. That's going to be www.web3contentlab.io. All right, so let's get right into it. Story number one, NFT NYC is going on in New York City for 2023 right now as we speak. This is live. And so April 12th through 14th, this is the annual conference dedicated to blockchain technology. Michelle Peterson Clark, we are graced with her presence. She is one of the speakers, and we'll be doing a session on Friday at 9:40 a.m. Eastern Time. Adoption of utility NFTs, e-com, enterprise, social media, and beyond. All of which are fascinating to me, Michelle, for obvious reasons. So I'm going to turn it over to you. I would love to hear your thoughts. Like, just bring us in. I'm not at the event this year, but for those who aren't able to make it, give us a sense of what you're seeing.
For those of you that are watching on LinkedIn Live, then this is my speaker pass. So you can see that. So you have to go to our YouTube channel or LinkedIn later if you. Oh, yes, I'll hold it up better, Mark. Right, there you go. And So it has been really interesting because I was here last year and I was at the London event in November as well, all run by the same people. So last year there were 7 different stages and they were spread over Times Square and New York City. So the way the program is quite tight. So, you might get a 10-minute or a 15-minute session, or there could be a 25-minute panel. But if you were wanting to see someone on the future stage at Radio City Music Hall at 10 o'clock, but then someone was on at the Marriott in Times Square at 10:10, you were not able to really get from Radio City Music Hall to there, which, and if you haven't been to New York, that would be like a 20 to 25-minute walk. So when someone does a 10-minute talk, by the time you got there, you missed half the sessions. And the quality was not that high last year. There was a large number of crypto bros and a lot of NFT 10,000 PFP project type things. And this year's quite different. They have it at the Javits Centre. Everything's in the one spot. So it's over only 2 floors. So you only have to go from the 3rd floor and up to the 4th floor. And on the 4th floor, there's probably, I think there's about 80% of the rooms. The rest of the 2 are on the 3rd floor with the trade show area. So from that point of view, it's made it fantastic because you've been able to actually get around. The other thing too is that there's a lot more brands here this year rather than particular projects. And of the people who are in the trade show, there's a lot of tools as opposed to projects. So, various things for you to launch your project, mint your project, assist your project, market your project, create art, all of those sorts of things. So they're sort of the things that are in the trade show.
I would think that the networking would be easier with it all being in one building, just in terms of running into people and chit-chatting.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yes. I mean, certainly from that point of view, I actually went, when I was working with Ghost Market last year, I went with 5 people, and like it was impossible to try and coordinate to meet up to even talk about what it was that you heard or what sessions you went to. We kind of divided them up. And so from that point of view, it's fantastic because you're seeing people in the corridors, you see speakers in the loo, all of that kind of stuff. And there's the coffee stations and the food and whatever. And so it's from that point of view, it's been really fantastic. And, kudos to them for doing that. Last year, they said that they had about 15,000 people. They've got between 11 and 12,000 this year. It doesn't seem as many because, not everyone comes to everything, obviously, but also because the Javits Centre is a conference centre. It was built for large-scale conferences. There's lots of room and lots of space. So it means that you don't feel cramped. The Marriott, it was that last year they had it over 7 floors and they've got 3 lifts. It was just a nightmare. And so from that point of view, it's fantastic and it's much better. The quality of the speakers is really high this year of the ones. Like I was in sessions all day today from 9 until I left there at 5 o'clock. So there was a large number of sessions that I went to, and I'm going to sort of talk to you guys a little bit about some of the things that I got out of those sessions, which is a state, sort of a summary, I guess, of the state of the industry at the moment and where we're at in terms of not just NFTs because it's called NFT.NYC, but also too because, also about Web3 and about how the space is developing, where people see the space going. And, just a couple of things I'll talk about first up. So, and I'm looking at my notes for those people that are, watching the video later or whatever, because we, I only got back at 5:30, so I haven't been able to write them up to be able to have them succinctly. So I'm going to go through them.
Take your time on the notes, Michelle. For those who aren't aware, Michelle is probably suffering jet lag coming over from the UK, and and helping me manage multiple broadcasts simultaneously. We're right now doing LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter Spaces. So. Bear with us, folks. But Michelle, I'm very interested to hear the conference in the under the cloudiness, we'll call it, of the crypto winter. It seems like a lot of higher quality sponsors as well, not just people pitching stuff.
Yeah, and interestingly though, some of the really larger scale projects, like last year, Polygon Labs had a huge space. They had sort of like igloo-y kind of things where you could go into, different sort of little cocoony kind of things, and they're not here this year. So that's an interesting thing. But anyway, let's talk about the thing. So what people are talking about at the moment is the activity that we're seeing right now in the Web3 space. We're seeing digital art, We're seeing collectibles, so PFPs. People know probably the most about those. We're seeing sports NFTs, and we're seeing metaverse and land sort of stuff. So they're kind of the four things that we're seeing right now. So not so much yet, but just starting to emerge. We see digital fashion, music, and then real world stuff. So utility NFTs. So things that you create in the real world or in Web 2, and how you can put that into Web 3. So they're the sorts of things that people are working on at the moment. The first four all in, and the other three, just starting to be developed. Of those, gaming currently, in terms of the largest number of holdings of NFTs, so who owns, which group or segment owns the largest number of NFTs currently, and it's the gaming sector by a ton. So even though you have people who have created 10,000 PFP collections and many of them have sold out, the number of gaming NFTs is phenomenally more. And so that's an interesting thing.
I don't know that surprises me though. The gaming lends itself to this, both the in-game purchases and just the ability to level up your characters. We've talked about this. I feel like gaming is one of those things. I'm surprised music isn't more represented.
Yeah, not yet.
Okay, good to know.
Not yet. And it's because they can attract the largest number of users because they have Web2 or offline audiences. So you've got, NBA Top Shots, you've got the Axel Infinity NFTs, which is a game, so the sporting sort of super fan base stuff, they are the ones that have the largest number of offline fans, so they have brought some of them into the online world. Obviously, Ethereum was the chain that dominated and is still dominating for NFTs. So, that's something that is no surprise to anybody. Interestingly, the amount per user is exceptionally high. So it's about $4,000 per person. So if someone gets into this space, they're likely to spend up to $4,000. Now, customers in like Web2, the average might be $400. So, that's a lot more per person when they get and so I thought that was quite an interesting thing as well.
Question for you on that, Michelle. Do you think that that's a reflection of support for artists, et cetera? Is that because people want to be spending that, or is that just a matter of it's an easier environment? Why do you think that's a big disparity? If the Web2 average spend is $400 and the Web3 average spend is $4,000.
Well, I mean, I think too that we would have to think that the figures would be skewed by the crypto punks and the Bored Ape Yacht Clubs of this world.
Right.
You bought it for $695 and some of them sold for $2 million at the top of the market.
You had a few of those, right? A couple of years?
No, yeah, I wish. I wouldn't be working. I'd be on a beach in the Bahamas if I had several of those.
No, you wouldn't.
Looked at them at the time and went, oh my God, they're so ugly. Why on earth would you why would you waste $600 on one of those? More for me.
Right.
But when you look at the trading volumes and the numbers of stuff, in terms of, oh, hey, Mike is here. How exciting.
For those folks on Twitter Spaces, we've just been joined by our colleague, Mike Neubauer, your ops guy, coming in from Miami. Mike, Michelle was giving us the rundown on what's going on in NFT.NYC. I know you've been busy today, Mike. If you want to say a quick hello and fill us in on what you've been working on as well.
Yeah. Hey, sorry for the tardiness. I guess we're in the middle of launching the next drop of the Battle Bunnies project, so I'm running the dev work on that, running the execution of the contract and deploying everything. It's been a fun couple days, to say the least.
Welcome. I'm glad you were able to join. To reset the room right now, Michelle is filling us in on NFT NYC. She is a speaker on Friday and is in attendance in person. Mike, what Michelle was sharing is that the popular representations, if you will, today she's seen is digital art, collectibles, sports, and metaverse land. What is, I won't say less popular, but emerging as the word I think you used, Michelle, digital fashion, music, and then real world utility, which also surprises me. But the gaming sector pretty much owning the space, it sounds like. So that's what Michelle is sharing with us. She was giving us a rundown of what she had seen today.
Sounds
Michelle,
sounds
sorry, Mike.
like it's checking all the boxes, I guess. Is there anything that's not there?
No, it was just one of the talks this morning, and that's what they were sort of talking about. Mike, your volume's really loud, just in case you wanted to turn it down a little bit. So, in terms of the types of volume and stuff, they're saying wash trading probably would cut volume numbers when you're looking at this kind of stuff between 40 and 50%. So for those people who don't know what wash trading is basically you have wallet A and wallet B, and you transfer your NFT between your two wallets back and forth. So it's not actually people really trading. It's you moving it around. And often people do that because some marketplaces or platforms offer rewards and stuff like that. And so that's pretty, pretty common. So, and the other thing, Mark, I was in sessions from 9 till 5 today, and it's way better than last year. One of the main reasons is simply because it is in the one venue. And so that's in the speakers. There's less crypto bros and a few more people actually doing stuff in the.
So, Mike, Michelle was also sharing that, Michelle, if I got those numbers right, there were roughly 15,000, you believe, in attendance last year versus 12,000 or so this year.
Yeah, 11 to 12. Yeah.
It's not much of a difference in terms of the crypto winter has not really crimped the attendance as much as people would expect.
Well, I would also anticipate a lot more people are actually in New York for the event than actually attending the event. That's kind of what the consensus of last year showcased.
Right.
So, I mean, like if I could go back in time, I wouldn't buy a ticket to last year.
So for those who didn't go last year, it was a free-for-all outside the event. There were NFT.NYC took over that section of New York for pretty much several days. The bars, the restaurants, that's all that was happening were companies and projects hosting events. Hey, we're joined by our colleague, Linda Ray, finally. Linda, good to see you. Thanks for making the time.
Hey, Linda.
So, Michelle, I'm actually curious. Were the events that you attended in terms of the talks, were they well attended? Meaning internally, the talks were. What do you feel like people were trying to learn the most about?
So, in terms of the number of people mulling around, if I had to guess, but the space is huge, so it's a bit hard. But I would imagine on site there's probably half, so 5,000 to 6,000 on site. So, it's still a lot of people, but not 11,000. But I know people who only arrived today, for example, they didn't attend today, and they'll be there tomorrow or the next day. So, there's always that sort of thing that goes on as well. So moving on, if we can, to some more stuff. So how can you make, easier conversations with people about NFTs was one of the topics. And so, what do NFTs offer brands? And one of the speakers said that he thinks that they offer 3 different things. So they offer digital twins. So, like if you've got a physical product, you can have an NFT that goes with it. So it's a twin of, whatever it is that you have purchased. Loyalty programs, we've seen that with Starbucks, and we've talked about that a number of times before. And collectibles. So, things that are rare things, or, people might want to buy an NFT of, say, the first Air Jordan was produced or something like that. he talked about the fact that a lot of the large brands that they work with see NFTs as companions to their physical products, not as NFTs in and of themselves. And I think that that's one of the big changes from last year to this year. There is very few people here this year talking about a 10,000 PFP collection and it being the only thing. That is not what people are talking about this year. They are talking about how you can piggyback or how you can collaborate amongst projects or amongst brands that have an offline, like a Web2 presence, not necessarily offline, but have a different model for their business, and using NFTs as a complement to that, rather than as a standalone thing itself. And for example, Adidas or Adidas, as you Americans like to say, they launched their NFT things in May 2022. Obviously their physical products, etc., but they really don't have any plan for what they're going to do with that. And they, but the NFTs they have sold, interestingly enough. So say they've got a shoe and they've got an NFT that goes with the shoe. A physical product is only 10% of the value of what the NFT is. So even though people have been given the NFT or purchased the NFT because they bought a pair of Adidas runners or whatever, the value of the physical product is only 10% of what the NFT, because the NFTs have gone up in value because of that. So I thought that was a really interesting thing. What do you guys think about that?
That's interesting. I'm still getting over the Adidas, by the way. But
Adidas.
No. I know. No, we try to do this the right way. It is a European company, so we have to honor that. I think that I expected the NFT.NYC attendance to be much further impacted, like I mentioned. I feel like the quality of the speakers has gone up. I believe you when you say the lack of crypto bros, because they've simply got wiped out. So thankfully, and I feel like, as we've discussed before, we're in that phase of Web3. It's the pets.com wipeout, where now we're sifting out the Amazons and the Netscapes and the Googles. I feel like we'll get there, but it's nice to see that the attendance is still going on. Mike, we've talked about this also. The technology is not going away. Blockchain is not going away because there's a crypto winter going on.
Well, it sounds to me like everything you're saying, Michelle, is things we've been saying on this show for a very, very long time. The ability to utilize this technology, not as the project itself, but as a tangent of the project. And that I think shows the long-term sustainability that this will provide. I think the days of those PFP projects and everything, they're all regulated on hype and, the fear of missing out and all of these other, I guess, strategies that force impulse buys. Stocks, I guess, have that reputation in some capacity too. But the sustainable projects are the ones that we will start seeing more consistently there year after year after year. And, if that's what, either has some sort of a steady attendance or growth in attendance, then we know that there's going to be massive moves made on various different, companies and projects. And, I wouldn't be surprised if, venues that start hosting these things start implementing Web3 all over the place. I just remember last year, like where is it this year? Where's the main building?
It's at the Javits Center.
Okay, so this is exactly where they should have had it last year, right?
Yes.
Times Square was a disaster. The hotel was just overcrowded. The Javits Center is the perfect venue for an event like this because it keeps everybody in the same place. And then, you can go do your respective things after the event, but you can kind of walk an event and really get the best out of it. So I'm glad that they kind of understood that. I'm sure there was a lot of criticism with it. And, it's good to see that obviously they've evolved to it.
So I'm going to move us on to the first story, if that's okay, because I do want to come back to this at the close. I feel like NFT.NYC is obviously the theme here, but traditionally we're trying to come up with some themes that we see emerging in the space. And one of the things that struck me, story number one comes to us out of Blockworks. Hong Kong's finance chief pushing for Web3 adoption. Mike, I know where this is going to go, but Hong Kong wants to make the financial chief there wants to make Hong Kong a regional crypto hub. They plan to boost Web3 adoption through regulation, and they're going to be developing a licensing system, Web3, as it grows throughout Hong Kong, and they're hosting large-scale seminars featuring firms like Alibaba, Baidu, Tencent, Huawei. These are big names over there, obviously. So we'll start off with you, Mike. I'm sure I can think of what you might want to say about this, and I've got thoughts as well. Hong Kong, Web3, what do you think?
I'll be kind, I promise.
You're not gonna clean the clothes tonight, Mike.
No. But I will say that my bags are still packed for Abu Dhabi. I definitely, look, there's going to be certain regions of the world where Web3 applications are going to be regulated differently. So you're going to see these hubs and these regional spots kind of pop up in different locations to cater different parts of the world. If Hong Kong's that place for, Southeast Asia, great. I know that there's definitely going to be moves made like that in certain places that I don't want to say the regulations are laxed, but they're more inviting, just because of the opportunities that present themselves there. Whether that leads to bad players showing up there and taking advantage of a system that's in place, I'd put my money on it.
Even communist China?
You said it, I didn't.
They'll be endorsed. They'll be endorsed. People who come and take the money. I look, it's no shock. There's no shock value in seeing this come a few weeks or months after Abu Dhabi launched their, what was it, 1 billion, 5 billion, however many billion it was.
Abu Dhabi, to refresh folks, Abu Dhabi has launched a $3 billion fund to help attract and woo and companies that want to do business, crypto, Web3 in their region. They're going to give them money.
Yeah. So no surprise that Asia have gone, hang on, we don't want them to go there. We want them to come here. So, that's why they'd be doing it.
You've got that in Monaco. You've got that in the Caribbean. I mean, we've talked about this. The United States, which was a forerunner, in my opinion, it's their ball to lose right now, and it seems like this is the setup for how they lose it.
Yeah.
So my comment, and Mike, I'm sure you think the same way. It rubs me a little funny that they're planning Web3 adoption through regulation. That's the irony of that. Is a licensing system for Web3 to me stands in stark contrast to what the whole decentralization movement's all about.
Well, it's bringing these entities back into the equation, right? But I mean, again, I'm not naive to the fact that at some point these entities will also not take advantage of the technology, right? So with that comes, oversight and some sort of regulatory initiative, because, theoretically it's an entity. It's not, it's I guess an entity that shouldn't die out, right? It should continue to evolve. And if the technology helps it do its job, which I think the technology could help do its job. But look, either way, I mean, the government's getting involved in this is a cash grab in a time in the world where the economy is it's suffering. We're seeing more countries, sort of leave the US dollar as the backing. I think France made a pretty interesting comment this past week that's starting to ruffle some feathers. We're going to start seeing a dynamic shift in the way that the global economies, take place. And, I don't know anything about, these global economics. I'm not offering advice. I'm just providing insight on what I'm seeing. But if I were to, give my, foreshadow prediction, kind of insight on what I know about Web3 technology, it's going to be a part of the equation in some way, shape, or form.
So not to be outdone, our neighbors, the democratic Japan, is pushing for a friendlier crypto environment with the Web3 proposal of their own. This is Cointelegraph. Japan has got a project team that released a white paper suggesting ways that country can expand their crypto industry. They're seeking to create a welcoming atmosphere, much like we saw in the Mideast. They're looking at modification of tax code to incentivize folks to set up shop there. So you've got both the movement in Hong Kong and in Japan. So Asia is at the government level making very strong moves to create the environment that will attract, frankly, the money of these crypto projects. Michelle, what do you think about this?
Well, I mean, we know, and we've talked about it so many times, that everyone's going to have to come on board eventually, aren't they? And I think that the the Dubai fund has spooked everyone. So in terms of governments, in terms of countries who have been adopting let's wait and see how the FTX fallout in America plays out, and then you've got other people stepping up to the plate and saying, "Hey, everyone wants to leave America's Web3 space. Come over here," waving some flags and offering some cash. And so, other countries have gone, well, we better get on with that. And that's what they're doing.
So this show is not meant to be financial advice, but I'm going to share this in my Wall Street background here. I feel that the big winner in all of this, no matter what, ends up being Bitcoin because it is a non-government based thing. Now, I could be wrong, and who's to say? I don't know what that means, but I do know this. You're right. We're looking at the creation of, if you will, the Swiss banking culture in crypto in whatever region it ends up in. That hasn't been established yet in the world of crypto, but that's what's going to happen is we are going to see the Switzerland of Web3, some version of it, if it's the Middle East, if it's Asia. But yeah, there's jockeying going on right now. It's more than just tax code, more than just some incentivizations of a fund. Capital goes to where it's most welcome and where it can grow the easiest. So this to me is the regulations, it would be the opposite. The least regulation wins. That's how Switzerland did it.
So I'll piggyback off of your non-financial advice prediction. The rule or the wave of the way crypto has evolved since its inception is the way of Bitcoin, so goes the wayeth of all other tokens, right? So if your prediction is accurate, which I'm not disagreeing about it, that's a really good sign for, the bounce back in this market, right? Which will lead to more sustainable growth, which will lead to more investment. I think the comment of Japan and, the tax incentives and, this is designed to basically stand up on a soapbox with a megaphone and say, we are wanting the business here. We are welcoming it here. We see that, particularly in the US when there's tax incentives, businesses flock here. When the taxes go nuts, they start fleeting all over the place. This is just the economies of business on a global scale that we live in today. But I also don't want to dismiss the technology and the implications of having it in some sort of a governing entity, right? Like the whole point of this is that, it is transparent, but, we're not relying on the government of Japan to be sustainable in order for this technology to evolve. It might have a backing. It might, encourage participation in building there due to regulatory efforts and, certain, tax implications that are applicable there. But if the government of Japan starts setting up nodes to handle Web3 transactions all over the country, that's when red flags need to start popping up all over the place here.
So Linda has commented here on LinkedIn, we need some stability in this market. There's been too much garbage. I agree with her. Linda, you're right. But I will say this, though. The whole driver of Bitcoin's establishment, going back to Satoshi Nakamoto, was not being under the government's thumb. So go ahead, Michelle.
So I was going to jump in and say I listened to a really, really interesting panel earlier in the day, and it had two high-up people from Amazon, one in the more consumer products, and then the other guy was from AWS service, Amazon Web Services, and a guy from OpenSea and a woman from Layer 1. Is that right? Yeah, Layer 1. And they were asked a question about what do they see in what do they want to see in the next year? 3 things. And this is interesting what they said. So the guy from Amazon Web Services said They think that there'll be more innovation in block spaces. So in the stuff around blockchains and things like that, regulation, he thinks in the next 12 months, there'll be more regulation, which will offer more clarity. And that goes to Linda's point as well. He also thinks that some of the best companies that will be more sustainable longer term will be this year. So the woman from Layer One, Irene, she said she thinks that there'll be a large number of games launching, more utility NFT projects, and she also thinks, and Mike, maybe you could talk to some of this, she thinks that there'll be more multi-chain stuff. So people won't just launch their own chain. She thinks the chains will get together and do multi-chain projects.
I don't think the chains need to get together to do that. I think that is just a bridge that needs to be built in order to, interact with those multi-chains, right? And we're starting to see this now. I mean, smart contracts, especially on the Ethereum blockchain, they're starting to implement what's called application functions, right? So NiftyKit is a perfect example of this. They just introduced what's called a diamond contract. And their diamond contract has functions that you can pull in and pull out of the respective contract, right? So if I'm on an Ethereum contract, for example, and I pull a function which allows me to mint in Solana, I can actually pull that function into my Ethereum smart contract, mint a token from my Ethereum smart contract in a completely separate token, right? That's an example of a cross-chain application. I agree. I think that is definitely the future on where all this goes. And that's going to prove, I guess, something else that we've been saying here for a long time. These chains are ultimately going to start getting subdivided into particular industries. And I think that is something that is going to work itself into the market. It has to. People need to know where they want to search for certain things. And there's going to be different applications on these chains. But with these cross-chain references, now it expands your targeted audience. Solana is not fighting for Polygon. Polygon is not fighting with Ethereum. I mean, there's going to be applications and interactions within these respective chains. That's honestly, it's only going to make this technology grow even more.
Yeah. And then Jeremy from OpenSea, he thinks there'll be a breakout game this year. So the game that becomes the thing that everyone plays. So like the Fortnite of Web3, for example. He thinks that within 12 months, and apparently OpenSea are working on some of this, that, your parents will be able to get a wallet in 3 clicks and it will feel much more like a traditional experience. And that Web3 native brands will shine as NFT tech is expressed in a different way. So a lot of the talks today were about the language around how we describe Web3 and NFTs has to become way simpler, because it's too, you lose people at, when I posted I was coming here, I had several people on my Facebook feed go, what's an NFT? Nobody knows. So another topic, someone said, NFTs are digital wrappers around digital products. So, that are digital products. So that's kind of, and they're better than JPEGs. So, like there's, an NFT is a picture that's better than a JPEG, So, so there's those sorts of conversations going on here as well.
I completely agree with the simplification and that the language, the terminology, we've discussed this in the past here, it has to change because people don't understand. But I do think there's a gap between folks who are trying to learn it, like us, and those who follow, etc., and those who are not even trying. And that gap is going to be not a language problem. But if you're, this is where Web3 transforms the marketing and sales angles of business. It's already starting. And I think that we're going to see a schism, like a separation between companies that adopt it, just like AI.
Well, there's a direct assimilation between NFTs and crypto, right? And, the truth is that there's technologies out there now that don't make that necessarily necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, it's interesting to see how things are going to continue to evolve like that. And again, as long as the concept of the technology is utilized as a piece or some sort of an end goal for marketing strategy or a collaboration or a biz dev strategy, like within the confines of how you're trying to build it out, you're safe. If you throw all your chips on black and you think you're going to have this, 15-minute sellout because you have a good PR person on Twitter, I mean, that's not a sustainable approach. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people that can sink your project. There's going to be a lot of community interaction that's going to be detrimental to you over time. And I think that's what this little bear market, winter has taught us.
Right. So on that note, I'm going to take us to story number 3 here. This is out of Blockworks. These are global brands that are entering Web3 now. This is the name of the story, is actually global brands entering Web3. And we've discussed from Starbucks and Disney, Nike, Budweiser, they've all taken a stab at it, the Porsche debacle. But these are ones that are successfully working, and these are primarily overseas companies, at least from America. So you've got Gucci, Prada, Ralph Lauren, Dolce & Gabbana, Burberry, Christian Dior, and Zara. These are all companies that have experimented with Web3 technologies, all creating unique digital assets. I don't need to be the one to tell you, these are all high-end fashion companies, which is interesting, or jewelry. And so it looks like the hospitality services, fashion brands, and travel companies are leading right now in terms of Web3 entrance. Automotive, sports, technology, and retail are following, right? These are emerging, as Michelle, I like that word, it's a good one. So it's interesting to see this is that schism between companies trying and companies not, but there's also an industry base to this. What are your thoughts on this, Michelle?
So I was in a women's forum yesterday with Sandy Carter, the COO of Unstoppable Domains, and she talked a little bit about this. And there was also correspondingly a talk I went to today that was about what's going to get NFTs to 1 billion users is brands. It's not going to be PFP projects, and NFT solely projects. And one of the really interesting things when you think about it is this. So currently MetaMask has around 30 million users. They estimate in the crypto space there's probably around 50 million crypto users. Now Starbucks has 27.5 million customers currently. Now, when you think about that, we've been going, 5 years in this space, if you think about the early adopters, 4 to 5 years, and there's still only around 50 million people in the space. So you think to yourself, why would Starbucks bother? Why would they bother about being in Web3 when they've already got 27.5 million users, regardless of it? So it makes you start to think about why brands want to be and what they see as the benefits from it. And Sandy certainly talked about a lot about the way in which brands are looking at getting their own Web3 domains and using them. I mean, she's from Unstoppable Domains, so that's obviously her thing. But it's a really it's a really interesting thing when you think about the number of customers that these sorts of brands have. Porsche, Prada, all of those, Gucci, they have mega amounts of customers, and this is what they see as the future of the next revolution in the internet. And so they all want to be involved, and they're and have been for a number of years innovative thinkers, and this is why they're starting to look at Web3 and they're entering the space.
I'm going to toss it to Mike in a second, but I want to just comment. Michelle, you asked the question why brands want to be in the space. I really think that's the golden question right now, because many of them are probably in it for the wrong reason. I could be wrong, but I think you're going to see companies that want to have the loyalty that this will drive, right? That's what the purpose of this technology does. And others are looking at the cash grab that we've seen play out several times from several companies, I won't name names, that really didn't work. So I don't know. That is the operative piece there. Why are they in it? Mike, what's your thoughts on this, the development here? It looks like there's the luxury brands are leading. You've got the automotive sports following.
Well, I mean, the automotive one is always one that I think we've seen fail time and time again, just because they haven't figured out the proper use case for it. Sports, I think there's a tremendous opportunity just because of the statistical data that could be on chain within metadata of these things. Like, these are things that we've been exploring for, I guess, the better part of the last year, just trying to implement those aspects into sports projects. But, you take these other brands, these high end brands that sell like, $250 stink water or, $900 face creams. Like, there is tremendous margins in their business model as it is. And their whole thing is predicated around, status, right? And that's a big component of some of this Web3 application right now. It's status. Who really wants that, nasty art of a yacht Bored Ape yacht club NFT, right? But there's a status behind it that I guess you can't put a dollar figure on, and it's derived from the market, whether it's a cash grab or whether it's a community building tool, or whether it's just a way to encourage utility that collaborate with partnered companies or with their respective projects. These are the ways that these people need to start thinking about utilizing the technology in order for it to be sustainable and be effective. But one of the things that, the three of us meeting, I guess, a year ago at this point, we're talking about a year ago, is the need to have an onboarding process that's paid for, that's simplified, and is explained to people in a way that, gets them into the space, because that's going to help them explore it further. Again, we're still in a world where we want people to hit a button and make them waffles. This technology is not quite there. It doesn't matter how many users MetaMask has. I'd love to see how many people have multiple wallets and how many are counted in that figure. There's still a lot of work to be done from these brands to get people into the space. And I think, look, if there's going to be somebody that takes the effort to do it, why not the luxury side of it? If you can't own a handbag, maybe you can at least join the community and be assimilated with people who can.
Right. Yep. I think that your earlier comments, Michelle, about it was 3 clicks to open a wallet. I think that we've talked about how when people don't know it's Web3, that's when it really takes off. So yeah, that's coming though, Mike. I agree with you. It's not here yet, but we all agree that is in the cards. I'm going to move us into the last story for the evening. This is coming off Variety.com. Coming soon to a theater near you. Web3. Movie theaters are expanding into digital channels to remain relevant. By aligning on Web3, studios and theater chains are now trying to remain competitive as consumers begin, streaming entertainment on their devices has taken off. Merchandising is connected to loyalty, and the nature of loyalty changes with Web3, as we know, and movies and merchandising have always gone hand in hand. So I think out of desperation, my opinion, the movie theaters are turning to Web3, but I do think that their business model lends itself well. We'll start off with you, Mike, on this one. What do you think about movie theaters getting into Web3?
Well, they're hurting. I think there's no doubt about that. The pandemic really kind of put an end to that. And I've done some business in that industry, and like a lot of people don't realize they don't make a lot of money. They actually have to, abide by certain things with the film studios. The studios actually determine when certain things come in. They actually have to buy those movies. And then, they actually make money back based around how long it's in the theater. Other than that, it's popcorn and $55 sodas that, you're peeing for the next 2.5 hours. They need something, man. They need something to bring people in. They tried the loyalty thing. I mean, I'm a member of, AMC and all that other stuff, right? Every now and then you get some peanuts thrown at you. Great. I think that where this takes the next level is, and, I know Gary's working on some of these aspects of ownership in some of these films, just as a community, as an NFT owner or something along those lines. Maybe there'll be exclusive private screenings, or maybe there'll be merchandise, or, certain aspects that are assimilated within the movie that these theaters will then have the license rights to. And hopefully they can wrestle that away from the studios, because the studio definitely has, they definitely have the upper hand here.
Michelle, what do you think about the concept of movie theaters getting into Web3? Is this going to work?
Well, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? I mean, we have, I think, talked before about independent creators using a DAO or using an NFT to raise funds to be able to produce a movie when the theaters, when the production companies have said no. So, I mean, I certainly think that is going to be one area that will explode over the next 5 or 10 years. I mean, the thing is, a movie project can take a really long time. Is it the everywhere, everything, all at once was a 12-year project from when the first person who first thought it up, and then it was actually in the cinemas for various reasons. But like, it can be a really long lead time. So I think that it's an interesting concept. There is, I mean, as Mike said, the industry is struggling. Even in all the streaming services and stuff. I just saw on Twitter today that HBO Max and Discovery Plus are merging and rebranding as Max, I think, only. And so, obviously we're starting to see, deck chairs being moved around in the streaming services because, like, I mean, not so much in Australia or the UK, but here in the US, you have so many. I've seen billboards and ads for ones as I've been walking around here in New York, and I'm like,
oh, you're in New York too.
I said, I've never heard of them. Like, who on earth is that? Like, the weirdest names. So, like, I mean, there's got to be some give sometime, and I think it's coming.
So I've got some strong opinions here. I believe the movie industry in general is a buggy whip. I think that they need to get themselves into a whole new line of business. And here's why. On another, my company's working through something right now with a project. And if those who aren't familiar, Infinite Seinfeld, have you guys heard of this? This is a Twitch stream AI generated television show, if you will, where AI writes it, animates it, and posts it as if it's a Seinfeld episode. It's called Nothing Forever. It is literally 24/7 Seinfeld that doesn't stop. And this thing just keeps going from arc to arc to arc. Now, I'll spare the gory details, but in a world where AI exists for entertainment creation, just like with content marketing, these movie theaters, which all they did was distribution networks for entertainment, need to reinvent themselves.
Yeah.
It is not an option. So,
well, they tried. This is nothing new, right? Like, they threw video games in. They tried, all of these different fun tools. Some of them even have bar service where, like, they'll serve you drinks in the theater. Like, they're definitely trying something to change the game around a little bit.
I've gone to the Fork and Dine and paid $45 for a ticket. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, I'm not saying, and again, I just told you the reason why they have to charge those prices. The theaters charge them an arm and a leg to have the movie housed there, right? So, I was doing business with, a technology, a label technology that can incorporate cups, and like, I learned a lot of the ins and outs on it, man, and it's a tough game. It's a really, really tough business.
Right.
So. Look, I don't disagree, man. Like, everything is hurting, and they got to figure out new strategies on how to do it. I mean, again, you're limited on those options when you're just a distributor, right? You have to try to incorporate other things, other utility, other partnerships. The famous one, I guess, is if you give blood, they'll give you movie tickets, right? That's somehow of a partnership that worked. I mean, people get that; they know it.
I worked in finance, Mike. I've given enough blood.
Yeah, we all have. So, look, I hope that they take the technology, they run with it just like everybody else. I mean, again, I'm a firm believer that no matter what industry you're in, whether you're a small business owner, a medium-sized business, a large business, or a plumber, you could figure out a way to utilize this technology in your day-to-day activities.
Right. So I'm going to go around for Michelle comments.
I mean, is this their Kodak moment? Like, if they don't, what about the spin-offs from that? Like, movie stars that get paid 10, 20, $30 million a movie.
So this is very similar to when Toys R Us was letting Amazon make their toys or whatever. Like, you're in a window of time right now.
Yeah.
The good news for these movie theaters is that Web3 lends itself, that loyalty merchandise thing, you could. There's a lot of avenues that you can monetize, but you need to change your business model. I
Well,
don't run.
imagine a world where you pay for a ticket and you actually generate your own movie using AI.
That's my
Right?
point.
Like, you know, like these things are going to happen because the crap that they keep remaking is just not going to be sustainable. You know, I referenced it here before the Super Bowl. I mean, the first 5 ads were like Jurassic Park 17 and, you know, all of these other, you know, Transformers 58. Like, you know, enough of this already. Can we at least get original? I don't remember. I think Inception was the last original movie that came out.
So this is probably.
If I could get an NFT that could change the ending of some movies, I'd buy it in a second.
There you go.
My kid's 14. He watches things like Gravity Falls or Murder Drones. These are independent people, like a 20-year-old kid or usually recent university grad who's done a project with a couple of friends, and they generate some unbelievable piece of content that's 5 to 10 episodes, and that's it, and they're done. But these types of things are challenging movie theaters. No one's going to go to the theater anymore. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up in a minute. I want to get final thoughts about NFT.NYC. The themes that I'm seeing, Web3 going international, clearly every country is jockeying to attract the crypto industry. Right now, we're looking at Hong Kong, which is really China, and Japan making modifications of tax codes. We know Abu Dhabi in the Middle East is generating funds specifically to pay. There's a little bit of jockeying right now. Capital is in motion. I think we've seen the global brands, again, Gucci, Prada, Ralph Lauren, the luxury folks are all moving into this because it lends itself well. And then, of course, the movie theater conversation, there's entire new business models that need to emerge or companies go out of business. And with all that, we'll go around for final thoughts. I definitely want to hear your closing comments, Michelle, on NFT NYC. And Mike, being late to the party, you can take us anywhere you want to go. We'll start with you, Mike.
Well, like I said, I'll be nice and I won't, you know, make a comment on where Hong Kong is. You know, look, I'm glad to see that NFT NYC is better. I was extremely disappointed with the show last year. Especially like, you know, at the time it was at last year, it was sort of like still hot in the market space, right? So there was a lot of offsite utility, a lot of offsite meetups and all that other stuff, which was the best part of the event. Obviously meeting Linda was the highlight. You too, Michelle. We had a wonderful lunch. Marc bailed on me, so he gets no credit.
He did. I had dinner with him. Oh, you suck,
yeah,
Marc.
I know. You know, we had everything planned, and he's like, I don't feel like paying the toll anymore, man. So, it's all good. I went to Brooklyn and caught a concert instead.
That's awesome.
But you know, look, the thing that I guess intrigues me the most here is the brands, you know, still entering the space, and we're starting to see more and more stories of that pop up. And you know, it's a trend in the right direction. Whether it all happens at once or it doesn't, like we'll wait and see on that. But as long as people are still making moves, it's another solidification that, you know, you can have all the FTXs, you can have all the crap that's going on out there, but the technology is here to stay.
Yep. Michelle, what do you think? Tell me about NFT NYC, your thoughts on the themes you're seeing.
One more thing.
Oh, yeah.
And make sure you check out Michelle's presentation on Friday.
Yeah, so for those who aren't aware, I mentioned it earlier, Mike, just before you joined. Michelle will be speaking Friday at 9:40 a.m. Eastern Time at the event, Adoption of Utility NFTs. Michelle, I'll let you talk a little bit about what your talk will be about and then your thoughts around the event.
So I'm on a panel with 3 others, and we're just going to talk about how is it that content creators can use NFTs, digital collectibles, digital products, whatever you want to call them, for their business. So instead of mailing people tickets or sending them emails to register for things, you'll be able to use NFTs. And so it's really the utility and what you get for that and how you can add ongoing value to that person who attended your workshop or your meetup or your webinar, etc. So that's really what that's going to be about. Linda's asked a question about who's recording the session. I will have someone doing a recording, so it won't be like they are filming them all, but I'm not sure that you actually get access to the the videos, but we'll see. So one of the great things was that like they did last year, they had a thing in Times Square. So it was pretty interesting for everyone to see their speaker cards and stuff up on the billboards in Times Square. I was not there because I was asleep at that time, unfortunately, because of my jet lag. So I didn't get to see mine, which was a bit sad. I've been asking them today, did anyone film it, because I want to have a look. So I think that the one venue is better. I think that while attendance is down, the quality of who is here is up. Quietly, I heard that they're not making money this year. They made money last year, but they're probably not making any money on the event this year. So what that translates into will be interesting to see. And I think part of that would be because some of the major sort of sponsors, that there was a lot more major sponsors last year than this year. So, but I will be tweeting at Sam Queen 101 on Twitter tomorrow and Friday. So, follow me if you want to find out more about what happens on day 2 and day 3. Thanks.
That's great, Michelle. Good luck at the fireside chat. I think it's going to be a great little panel. I'm fortunate to have the benefit of your insights. I'm sure it'll be great.
Thank you.
I'm going to thank everyone for joining. Linda, as always, we appreciate your questions. For those who are on the replay, we are here every Wednesday on LinkedIn. So give us a follow if you like. Web3x3 is the podcast. We have also been streaming out over YouTube and over Twitter Spaces. So we're getting it slowly but surely. We appreciate the support. We want to thank everyone. Reminder that this is not financial advice, right? Just content discussions. And we will be back next Wednesday. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Peace.
Bye.